oh, we're going to take you guys on a little ride of 985 to Flowery Branch, but not just to Flowery Branch, Jarvis. Let's take them to a specific room on Flowery Branch's campus, right?
Yes.
Now, and this is, you know what? I love it, Jarvis, because this is really the upper room. It is, because it is the DB room, right? So check this out. Love these DB names, right? Jesse Bates III. I'm going to go from one side of the room to the next. You follow me. Jesse Bates III, Richie Grant, Jalen Hawkins, DeMarco Helms. That's one side of the room. Feel pretty confident if that's the room. And who knows where Micah Abernathy may or may not, land in that room. Then there's the other side of the room that I feel even more strongly about on some level. AJ Terrell, Jeff Okudah, D. Alford, Mike Hughes, Trey Flowers, Clark Phillips III. Now, granted, we know Okudah, we know Hughes. They're injured right now. We get that, but they're still a part of the room. So then we hear word from NFL Network's Tom Pelissero, and I'm sure there will be other reports as the day goes on. We, of course, are sourcing that as well, that corner Malcolm Butler is on his way to Atlanta today, and he is to work out with the Falcons tomorrow. Now, could just be an insurance policy because, let's be honest, he hasn't been on the field since 2020. So certainly you don't really know what Malcolm Butler is or, who he is still relative to how he was maybe in his heyday with the Patriots. But Jarvis, did that not raise a little eyebrow for you when you saw that maybe somebody was hitting Hartsfield Jackson and then they're going to hit 85 to 95 to have a conversation?
You know what? Like, this is the thing that is just, it's comedic to me when it comes to coaches talking about injury timelines in the preseason, because let's just be funky. They don't have to give them, and if they give you a timeline, they are very nice and they probably really, really like you. And more than likely, it's probably going to be off the record if they do so. So when I hear Malcolm Butler coming in, I think, okay, Jeff Okudah is not going to be, it's not where we thought he probably would be. I'm not saying that he had a misstep or anything like that, but just saying, like, more than likely, he's probably going to confirm that we probably may be looking at this dude maybe being out for a month, to start the season.
Right, which is what you and I thought initially.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that, versus, what else we're really thinking when we initially saw it, because I was out there, I thought this dude might be done for the season. So 4 to 6 weeks is probably a blessing at this point, especially for Jeff Okudah. It's definitely encouraging to see. So, but I really feel like this may be a sign that, hey, this is a room that we thought had all the depth, like you just listed out as far as with the DBs and the corners. Like, that's a nice room, right? You know what I'm saying? From a talent standpoint, a potential standpoint, like all those things, all of those names you named were a very nice name. But when you have a name probably that's not going to be out there that you expected him to be in Jeff Okudah, and a guy that you probably thought was going to come in and at least compete for that nickel spot, and he's kind of banged up. We don't even really have a timeline on him.
Right.
So this whole Malcolm Butler's at least workout kind of speaks to me, and especially the guy he ain't played since 2020, played in regular season games in 2020. This tells me that I wouldn't say they're desperate. I won't go that far, but I will say, hey, some things have gone down that we didn't expect, and we need to have a backup plan.
Because think about it, Jarvis, as we're sitting on the cusp, and Jarvis and I are going to give you all the reaction tomorrow, because we know that there are going to be so many moves that are made right up to the 11th hour, right? And we want to give you guys a comprehensive recap of our thoughts on how the Falcons got down to 53, right, on the roster.
Right, exactly.
But Jarvis, as we know it now, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because you said, hey, you're working out a guy who hasn't played since 2020, but there's a potential whether you go a Mike Jones or a Tay Davis. It just depends on. I know, right? Oh God!
I'm sorry. It's just so natural to you. I'm sorry.
Never go. But whoever they kind of decide that they want to cut, if you will. And I'm sorry. I'm going ahead of myself, because I was going to ask you a question about the linebacker core. So let me take a step back and go back to the DB room. when you look at that room, right, you're thinking to yourself, okay, Darren Hall, we'll go like we would say in college. Darren Hall's on the bubble, right? Cornell
Yeah.
Armstrong's on the bubble.
Has to
But
be,
you
right?
still got guys in the
Yeah.
corner room. But you are bringing in Malcolm Butler. So
Yeah.
that to me is
Yeah.
interesting because I think it says to that point that you made that I have Cornell Armstrong potentially if he's one of the ones who, I have Darren Hall, and then it's all the other guys that you and I mentioned that we see have the uptick, like a Clark Phillips III. We think he has an uptick. A D. Alford continues to have an uptick.
Yes.
AJ Terrell and Jeff Okudah, those are your starters, no question. But then you go out and get potentially Malcolm Butler. So to me, that raises an eyebrow for me as well to say, does that mean that maybe we don't quite know where Mike Hughes is or will be in his recovery, where Jeff Okudah will be in his recovery, and how that might shift the entire corner room such that, okay, Malcolm Butler, we know you can play this position. We know you can play that position. So we're going to go ahead and bring you in because you're more versatile and maybe you can fill in those gaps until we get those guys back. But I thought it was a very interesting move. I still think that you can still give the Falcons credit for having a deep DB room and a deep corner subset of that room.
Of course.
But I think it's interesting that there's conversation and commentary around bringing him in.
Yeah, and there's some familiarity there because Arthur Smith was with the Titans when Malcolm Butler was there. He signed a big free agent deal when he left the Patriots. Yes. So I think that, like this is an insurance policy. I really feel like this is an insurance policy. And as once the cuts come down, we'll find out as to whether or not this is a breaking case of emergency policy.
Right?
We breaking glass on this right now, or this is something like, hey, down the road. So I think we'll get a very clear picture tomorrow when we break down, react to that 53-man roster on the show. Make sure you all check that out. By the way, it's coming. For sure.
Yeah, you absolutely have to because, hey, look, we're looking and watching with bated breath, just like you guys are, to see what this roster is going to look like and what Arthur Smith, Terry Fontenot, Ryan Nielsen, Dave Ragone, what all of those guys have seen across OTAs, mini camp, training camp, preseason to say, hey, this is the squad that we feel we want to put forth come week 1 in the Benz against the Carolina Panthers. So yeah, I'm interested to kind of see that as well. And one more thing that we found out about, just a little tidbit, because I thought, okay, that's interesting because you know how we're always talking about the running back room and we talk about positionless football. So we talk about the receiver room, the running back room, and we just kind of throw the fullbacks in there for kicks and giggles. But of course, no surprise that the Falcons parted ways this morning. It was announced with Ratkovich, right? And so they're going to keep Keith Smith, the longtime fullback for them. But I thought that was interesting as well because I was like, okay, you could conceivably keep 2 fullbacks on the roster, or you could take that second spot theoretically and maybe you move it elsewhere because you sure have a full tight end room. Just saying.
Yeah, and you have a versatile tight end room too, right? Because I think that I've seen some formations out at Flowery Branch T. I was like, Arthur Smith about to put in some work. As far as he's gonna throw a lot of stuff at these guys.
22 personnel. He's about to have 23 personnel. So no, you're right.
Because I think that a guy like Jonnu Smith, who's very versatile, he's gonna be moving him around. You might see him appear in the backfield as well. So I think
and Parker
that
Hesse, whom they gave the contract, they extended. So they're saying not that they couldn't cut him, but I'm just saying they're showing confidence. They must have seen something that they liked in him. So
I think that when you come to that running back room, and that running back room is kind of full too, right?
It is,
So I think that you only can afford to maybe keep 1 fullback. You can't keep 2. You know what I'm saying? When you're looking at how the personnel that they have, like, and the versatility of it, because when you have tight ends that you can move all the way around, you got a tight end you can line up at the X, or the Y, or whatever, however you want to do it, or the Z. So all of those, you got so many guys that can do so many things at that one position group. Something has to fall. Somebody has to get, hey, like, oh, we appreciate your services and what you bring to the table, but we got a lot more talent in this group that we have to keep these guys versus trying to keep another guy at a position that, people don't even rarely keep fullbacks around nowadays anyway. So I'm sure Keith Smith is really smiling right now.
Oh, God, yeah. I said the same thing. I was like, Keith Smith stays having a job in Flowery Branch. Like my
And you know that's
stays
your
having
brother
a
too now.
job in Flowery
Did I say it
Branch.
right? You
What's
know that's
that?
your brother too, right?
Yeah, that's what I just said. My frat brother stays having a job. Oh man. But listen, guys, we got more to come. Of course, we're going to talk more Falcons, but we want to hear from you guys. I mean, what are your thoughts about the possibility of Malcolm Butler being added to this roster? Does that give you a little bit of pause on what that means for the rest of the corner room or the DB room overall? Let us know. Everydayers, please let us know, because we appreciate you guys. We appreciate your comments. And so drop those comments in the chat on YouTube. And of course, everydayers, you want to bring more everydayers. So tell all your friends to download ATL Day Ones wherever you get your podcasts.